We had 4 of them last year, and we will add these to the website. Our thinking is that the finished product of Engine 30, the kind of here's what we're creating, here's the sort of the application of this, will live on Engine 30. And our media partners will possibly take some of the product that we work. I think each one of them has a different expectation about what they want to get out of it. You'll hear from them in a little bit. Colab, you might have noticed that this project, Engine 30, ends before, or technically ends, before this class does, and certainly before this year does, okay? We have this idea that the projects that we create have an afterlife, that ideally what you want to do is you want to create stories which have some sort of ongoing life. Right? Some will get sort of set, they're a snapshot in time. But if you think of another way of doing journalism as something which actually, in standard journalism, stories decay as soon as they publish, right? It's like you publish sort of what is true right at the moment, and then the further you go on in the timeline, the more it decays because little pieces of information start to shift and reality starts to change, and pretty soon the story's out of date. It's a great thing to pay attention to at that moment, and you want to refer to it maybe in the future, but it starts to decay. If you think about journalism in another way, where what if a story got better the longer it was alive, right? Like what if the published state of it was a starting point? What if it was the launch of something? And what if over time the story itself started to change and to grow and accrete new information, reflect new realities as it goes along, right? That's kind of the thing that we're thinking about. But what we have learned is that when you publish something, and even if you think that it will have that kind of afterlife, or that it's a launch rather than than a death sentence, that you need people to keep changing it, to work with it, to do things with it, to help it renew itself. So our thought was that we would take the basis of what we do on Engine 30 and put it on Colab, or elements of it on Colab, and use Colab as that way to then give it that extra life, to have it do some things that extend beyond the actual Engine 30 itself. Okay? So in other words, Engine 30 is going to have a couple of components. One is going, because it's an experiment, we want to record what the experiment is, the making of it, how we're thinking about it, the things that we tried that didn't work, and the things that worked, right? So we want to document what it is that we're doing as a new way of doing journalism. The other part of it is that we want to produce something. In the past, the last 2 engines that we produced, they were the first 2 real projects that we did. We turned the fellowships into projects. But we were still thinking of the engines as educational experiences. That is, their primary purpose was to enrich the people in them and to help them come to new ways of thinking about journalism, to attain new skills, to whatever. That's not what Engine 30 is. Engine 30 is about creating a product that's really good, that's really the product of interesting thinking and experimental thinking and a lot of really good work. And through that, the educational experience will happen, right?
Are those the sites you were talking about, Colab and Engine 30? Is that what what you meant? Okay.
So we're less, it's not like we're abandoning the educational purpose of this, and after all, that's what you're all here for, is to learn. It's just that we have come to think after the last two projects, because project-based learning is such an effective way, it's an intense way of being able to learn something. We're thinking to take that next step and really invest in the project first, and we think that actually the educational experience will be improved by it, right? Does that make sense? So, so to answer your question, the sort of two parts of this is Engine 30 is the product and the documentation of putting that product together. CoLab is the process of the journalism and the educational experience, right? So we can experiment with Engine 30. Like, for instance, what if we go along and some of you think, oh, gee, you know, I really wish that in Engine 30 we had done this and tweaked it this way, and what if I took that thing from Engine 30 and I tweaked it and it, you know, it happened over here? CoLab's the perfect place to do something like that. And I know that in the second semester you're going to be taking a class with Sasha and Gabe Kahn in, it's called monetization, right? Monetization is used in that sense in a sort of very broad term. It's sort of like, how do you get back from something, right? How do you get paid for it in cash, but also how do you get paid in increasing your resources to be able to do more, to do other things, right? I actually sometimes think that getting paid cash is the most basic and least valuable reward that you can get for a project, right? It's great because you got to eat, but if you can get paid in terms of learning something spectacular, or your ideas get out in a way that gives you currency, you actually, that's a much longer lasting payment. It's how people build careers, right? So we're constantly sort of managing those two ways of getting paid. Where was I going with this? Oh, so that in the second semester, there may be elements of CoLab / Engine 30 that you might want to use in terms of thinking about monetizing, both for those two kinds of payment. Maybe there's a way of monetizing it with cash. Maybe there's a way of monetizing it with, you take one of those ideas, you turn it into something for which you get kudos and acclaim, and a job builds out of that, okay? I'm always thinking when I do a project, now I don't think about what the cash reward of it is. I think about it on the basis of how does it further the things that I'm interested in and that I want to be working on 2 years from now, or 5 years from now, or 10 years from now.
He's rolling money.
I'll let that one pass.
You're fine.
I'm doing fine.
You're
Yes.
fine. You're fine.
Okay.
Well, Tammy's not here yet.
Right.
So Reed Johnson's here. He's Andrew again. And we're going to, well, the other part that, there are three partners. There are three groups. So it's Engine 30, it has three groups, right? It has you, it has fellows, and it has media partners. And we have three projects that we're working on. So just to summarize kind of where we're headed in this class in this time, because it is a short amount of time, we have a lot to do, and I want to jump kind of right on it, is you know that out of this class you're not going to be assigned yet to a specific project, because we still need time to sort of sort that out. You know that you're going to have specific assignments at the end of this class. You know that you've got to be thinking, what is your A game? You know, there's some of you have already stepped forward. I hope you don't mind David. David stepped forward. He said, look, I've been program managing as a lawyer. This is what I do. I know how to do this. Can I contribute that strength? Absolutely. So you start seeing in his case, seeing how this system might work, get up here and put it on the board. I mean, we'll get there during the course of this class,
Okay.
so that you know, you're starting to think, what do you do? So it's roles. Doug mentioned the very first thing that he said is roles assigned. But then there are these projects, and the media partners are going to talk about, and we'll all talk about what the various subjects are. So the other piece of this is that there's stories attached. Maybe not just one story per project, maybe 15, maybe 20. Some are going to live on Colab, that's where they'll get kind of masticated and processed and done. And when they're really in great shape, they'll move over to Engine 30. That's what I sort of think that was, understand? You changed that, by the way.
Doug's
No,
very,
I'm
very
not
sneaky.
I'm not really clear from what you were saying, what Engine 30 is actually now. I'm less clear than I was before, so maybe some of you are also in the same camp and we're going to be talking about that. It's happened. Because there are media partners who, and this is, I think, really the first time that KCUT and KPCC and the LA Times will have worked together too, and shared resources. That there will be stories and pieces and things of this that might get published or produced there as well. So that's not off the charts either. It's not the dominant reason why we're doing this, but because we're trying to produce, we're aiming for Engine 30 November 8th to 18th to really pull it all together and see what it is that we've got. But there may be things along the way that become other things. So, you know, in a sense, we're working with Colab, we're working with Engine 30, and we also have these other 3 websites and editors and reporters who are going to be checking in. I mean, we're predominantly working online, but the Friday date